Good evening, gentlemen. I'd like to begin with this, if I may. The state legislature may have inked a deal on pension reform, as you all know, but it is currently being challenged in the courts. It is tied up in the courts. Many of the lawsuits contend that it is unconstitutional. Should you become governor and a judge rules that indeed the current legislation that is passed, pension reform, is unconstitutional, what will you do as you begin from ground zero? And please, gentlemen, give us specifics. We'll begin with Dan Rutherford.
Great, I appreciate it. And let me start off by noting that I understand today is Bruce Rauner's birthday. So, Mr. Rauner, happy birthday. And I understand that we have verified that you are old enough to run for governor.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Well, let me start off in that the legislation that was presented, I do not believe is constitutional. So I am prepared when the time comes in January 2015 when I become the governor that it's something I'm going to have to deal with. And the important operatives in the conclusion to it is I believe that the solution needs to have consideration and needs to have acceptance. And those are the two things I don't think this bill had. The other thing is I understand that there's a great deal of a number of parties interested and involved in this, as they should be. What I intend to do as the governor is bring all interested parties to the table, whether it be the AFSCME union, the SEIU, the IEA, the IFT, and all of those, as well as the business groups, and put everything on the table. Everything from COLA to retirement age to health care, all of the things that are important to conclude and not negotiate this in the hot searing spotlight of the public. I think that's where a lot of negotiations come to fault, that you need to go into the room, you need to discuss it, you need to have a consensus, and before I sign it, it has to have consideration and acceptance.
Mr. Dillard. Thank you. You do what I've said for a couple of years I've done as governor. You lock everybody, everyone that's an interested party in the executive mansion, and you don't come out until it's done. Hopefully, if it's struck down, the court gives us some guidance of which to build off of. I noticed that Rhode Island, which has always been hailed as a model for pension reform nationally in the last few days, had an agreement where they got, it was litigation, and they brought everyone together. That's what you have to do, and you've got to do it. But you need to lock everyone in the mansion. No one comes out until there's an agreement, because the state does need major pension reform.
Unfortunately, the pension bill that was passed was a significant failure. I think it was a Band-Aid on an open wound. We have a massive pension problem, and this pension bill did relatively little to fix it. And whether it's found constitutional or not, we need to do significantly more. So the most important thing we can do is freeze the current system. Freeze it. Don't take away what was honestly accrued by government workers. Don't change what was accrued. But for future work, from this day forward, move current workers and future workers into a defined contribution plan, more of a 401k style plan. That would not save significant money the first 2 years, but over a 10-year period, 15, 20-year period, tens of billions of dollars, and then we could have that money, some portion of it, available to fund into the old pension liability and protect the workers who have one modest pension. I believe workers who have one modest pension should get that pension, and they shouldn't have that changed retroactively. We can and should, I believe, also go back in and change agreements or pensions that were unethical. We have folks who were spiked into the system. We have folks who've got 2 or 3 pensions. Some of that's legal, but most of it's not ethical. It's unfair to taxpayers and to honest government workers who have one modest pension. We should retroactively go and change those, and if we need a constitutional referendum to do so, I would advocate for that.
Okay. Mr. Brady.
Well, as the only individual on the stage who supported that pension reform, I believe it will be constitutional, and I particularly give Jill Tracy, Senator Dillard's running mate, applause for having the courage to vote for the most difficult piece of legislation ever put in front of the General Assembly, something that worked to protect the interest of our teachers and our state employees who worked for us and paid every dime in the system they were asked to. But governors and legislators and people who passed budgets failed to fund the system, so we had a $100 billion liability that we had to solve. It was unsustainable. We didn't want to be like Detroit, so we came up with a system. I firmly believe it will be constitutional. I applaud all the members of the General Assembly who took that courageous vote. If for some reason the Supreme Court decides it's unconstitutional, and we went to great lengths to make sure, my answer would be to look at what they said, but to again make sure we protect everything everybody's earned to date alter the way we move forward. We probably then look at moving forward with a defined contribution program, as I've initiated in the past. But it's important for it to be constitutional that we live up to what everyone's earned. We did in this legislation was we were very careful to do that. We just altered the rate of growth, making it sustainable so it won't be Detroit-like.